Okay, yeah, I think we can get started anyway. So yeah, good morning again, and you're very welcome to our offer holder webinar on off-campus accommodation. We're very thankfully to be joined by Brandon Perry, who is the Vice President for Community in DCU's Student Union, who look after a lot of off-campus accommodation advice for incoming students and also current students in DCU. Brandon's going to give us a presentation just about some tips for finding off-campus accommodation and some resources that you guys can use. Um, After that, then we will have a chance to ask some questions. There's a Q&A box at the bottom of the webinar. If you put your questions in there as we go or at the end, once we get to the end of the webinar, then we'll try to work through as many as we can. We'd ask if you just keep your questions to off-campus accommodation. I'll stick an email in the chat at the end as well for any questions that are not related to off-campus accommodation. You can send your questions to there, and we will get back to you then at another time. So, Brandon, I'll hand over to you.
Yeah, howdy folks. My name's Brandon. I'm Vice President on the Student Union. In particular, I will be the one of us who deals mostly with off-campus accommodation, helping people find off-campus accommodation and supports related to that. So I'm just going to kind of go through broadly a lot of the work the Student Union does in that area. So StudentPad is our main platform for helping students try and find off-campus accommodation. As we know, if there's an accommodation crisis, on-campus accommodation, a lot of the private student accommodation around the local area are already at capacity or near enough capacity, and it's only the start of the summer. So we have a website called dcustudentpad.ie, which is our accommodation matching website. It's a free platform that allows DCU students to do properties up for rent in the local area. All the landlords and all the properties on Student Pad have been vetted and proved. They're all legitimate. We've gone through everything. So properties, there's a wide variety of what is available on studentpad.ie. So from spare rooms in people's houses to apartments to house shares, there's a bit of variety there. Hopefully there's something there in your interest. It's also, compared to other platforms, we aim for it to make it relatively affordable and better for students. So for 5 nights a week, it's the maximum rent that we accept is €650 per month. For 7 nights a week, the maximum rent we accept is €850 per month. From next year onwards, there's going to be a bit more flexibility in terms of it, so you're not stuck either on to pay 5 or 7 nights. If you're only on campus, say Monday to Wednesday, then you can pay rates for just 3 nights rent if you agree that with your landlord. So yeah, StudentPad would be our main platform for helping people try and find off-campus accommodation. If you go to the website there and set an account up, and any further questions on that, you can contact me. Other forms of off-campus accommodation around the local area, obviously there's purpose-built student accommodation. However, similar to the on-campus accommodation, a lot of that is either at capacity or already filled up by now at the start of the summer. Like, it goes very quickly and places are limited, it's fact of the matter. There are certain hotels, I'm not going to name because year on year they kind of vary, but certain hotels in around the local area would offer discount codes for students who need short-term stays. So again, kind of if you only need to be on campus 2 3 nights a week, or if there's some sort of emergency situation that requires you to stay there, if you get in contact with DCSU, we should have discount codes to give on to you for this sort of emergency and short-term accommodation. And the hotels tend to offer that at a discounted rate to their usual rates because it's for students. Um, I also just have noted there, regardless what form of off-campus accommodation you're going into, make sure you have a written agreement signed with your landlords. On the DCUSU website, we have a template. I am one if you, or else you can get in contact with me and I'll send it on. That's just kind of a good overview, just to give you a bit more security and stuff. Landlords and renters both generally want to have some sort of contract drawn up there just for everyone's sake and just clarify things. So always make sure you have one of them. In terms of off-campus student accommodation, even though I said a lot of them are near capacity, it still could be worth looking for it if you couldn't get anywhere on campus. So all within 15 minutes of DCU Gosnells campus, we have Shannon Hall, Shannon Square, Gateway, Aspen, Hazelwood. Again, these are all ranging in prices from about, I'd say, 600 to about €1,000 a month tends to be the price range there. Looking to see if there's any rooms available in any of them. And again, uh, at the best case, Shannon is literally 5 minute walk from the campus, if even. Hazelwood is probably the furthest way, and that's still about 15 minutes on the bus. So to Glasnevin, so these are all options. For Pats and All Hallows, there is not any off-campus purpose-built student accommodation around the local area, sadly. So it's either you get somewhere on campus or on digs. But again, to be fair, Pats is only about 15, 20 minutes from Glasnevin on the bus, so it's still reasonably commutable. Um, just going over some basics about your rights as a renter and just other things to watch out for before you get into accommodation. Your deposit cannot exceed a month's rent. This is an issue that comes up a lot. That landlords will try and uh, get like €1,000 deposit up front. It can't be any more than what they're charging for a month's rent. You can't be evicted without 20 days' notice. That's what's needed. On both ends, the landlord can't evict you and you can't leave without giving that notice. You have the right to request that you pay your rent on a monthly basis rather than a weekly basis. Again, a lot of landlords will ask for a weekly basis, but there's no reason that you shouldn't be able to just demand on a monthly basis. It's just in terms of paying for yourself. I also just broadly want to go over to keep your eye out for any scams. The line that was told to me when I was starting the job is, if it's too good to be true, it probably is. Like, if you're looking for some great deal or something, take a bit of skepticism, have a talk with the landlord, ask can you see the property first before signing any agreements, and make sure before moving in, and make sure you have a signed legal agreement in case anything comes up and you need to take action on that. Again, if you have any questions or concerns about where you're renting, there are plenty of people and resources to get in contact with. So just going over any of these, if you ever have any issues with your landlords or just in general have any questions about renting and need support, there's a wide range of services in different areas. So there's a residential tenancies board, which would handle most legal disputes with landlords and tenants. That'd be kind of the main point of contact. Threshold is very similar. That's a bit more of a service. So they have a questions box on their website and they're a bit more quicker for emails there rather than legal ends. That's more just kind of giving you advice and support and stuff. CATU, the Community Action Tenants Union. So that'll be signing up for a membership there. That's again kind of other renters and stuff just to give you backup. And then DCUSU. At the minute, we're kind of in the transition stage in the Students' Union. I'm finishing up next week. And then Emily, my successor, will be taking over from there. So that's why I haven't included my own contact details. Her work email hasn't been set up yet, but presumably it will be emily at dcusu.ie. So jot that down and then get in contact with her for any questions you have about accommodation or any support you need there going forward after next week. If there's anything in short, of course, you can get onto me. My email is brandon at dcusu.ie. Um, I'd say your student union will be a great place to just start off with any questions and stuff. Our offices are in the U building on Glasnevin and E Block on St. Pat's. We're here 9 to 5, Monday to Friday. So call or email anytime those hours and we'll be able to provide you with support and stuff. The phone number for the help desk is on our website. So again, get in contact with Student Union. If you have any confusion, we can point you in the right direction, be it looking for digs on Student Pad or if you have a dispute with any landlords to get onto any of those services. So yeah, that's kind of the broad details there.
Perfect. Thank you so much, Brandon. As well, there's also a great web page on the SU's website that has loads of resources that you can look through as well in your own time. I'll stick the link into the chat and you guys can explore that and have a look at some of the other resources that are available. Um, Now we'll just move on to any questions. So if anybody has, or actually just quickly before we move on to questions, I just have a few more slides to share. Um, just about some other resources and some other upcoming webinars. So we do have another webinar coming up this day next week, which is a student panel with some international students. This would be a chance to kind of learn about some international students' experience at DCU so far, and for you to ask them any questions about their experience at DCU. Um, Going on from that, we recommend that everybody join the Goan app. This is an app to allow you to meet other incoming international students, to meet students from your course, to talk to student ambassadors, and just kind of prepare and plan for arrival at DCU. A lot of students that have accommodation that maybe has a spare space in the accommodation and put this into this app as well. So it is a way of finding accommodation too. Follow on from that, you can follow all the DCU Global social media channels. We put updates for students up there all the time, especially coming into the start of semester for like registration dates, other things that you can do to help them prepare for arriving at DCU. So make sure to follow them to stay up to date. Yeah, and then we'll just move on to the questions now. So if anybody has any questions, you can stick them in the Q&A box, and we will try to get to as many as we can. So why the first question is about on-campus accommodation. So why is there a price difference in on-campus accommodation monthly payments? So I can answer that one. So I'd assume this probably means that between the different types of accommodation, so different accommodations have different prices depending on the size, depending on the type of room that you get. So a single room and a double room have different prices. If there's a private apartment option that has a different price. So the price is reflective of the size and the type of room that you do get on the on-campus accommodation. So the
Uh,
next one, Brandon, is just here. I heard that we only get a full apartment if we earn and have pay slips. Is it true we were planning to take up a full apartment and share between us? Will it work? I don't know if you
uh,
have any info on that.
I know you should be able to take an apartment out. Again, I suppose that might be a case of an individual issue with a landlord and stuff. But legally, there should be no issue with you renting the full apartment, regardless if you have pay slip or anything.
Great. The next question is how can they register a DCU student pad if they don't have a CAO number? So for international students, is it possible?
If you're registered as a DCU student, the CAO number would be the same as your student number you should get from registry. Um, if you don't currently have a student number, you can get in contact with registry and they should be able to send you like a temporary code that'll work to set up an account there.
So if you, send an email to registry, then they should be able to help you with that. Um, just the procedure to defer an admission. So I can just stick the email address. So you'd have to get on to international admissions. I'll put the email address just into the answer of your question there. If you send them an email, they'll be able to help you with the deferral of your admission. So question on what are the prices of different rooms? I think you went through that a little bit, but maybe if you just give a kind of standard price that people would normally pay.
Yeah, so I suppose it depends on student pads. If you're paying for kind of 5 days a week, that'd be about €650 a month on average. If you're paying for the full 7 nights a week, that'd be about €850. In terms of off campus accommodation around the local area, that tend to vary. I don't have exact figures off the top of my head, but it'd be about between €700 and €1,000 a month, depending again kind of where you're getting it and what sort of room it is.
Perfect. The next one is, can they rent an apartment outside the campus for only 50 weeks?
Yeah, that's kind of down to you and the landlord writing up an agreement. There's no minimum or maximum time for how long your contract can be. So just make sure that you and the landlord clearly communicate that it's 50 weeks and have that in your contract.
The next one is then, is it possible to get a recording of the on-campus accommodation session? So I'll just stick the link into the answer to this question, and I will give you the link the way you can access all the recordings of the previous webinars and also the uh, registration details for the upcoming ones. So for pictures of the different types of rooms in Personal House, you'll be able to find them on the DCU accommodation website. They should have pictures of all the on-campus accommodation options. Um, when will student accommodation get back to us? And is it in favor of international? So I think this is the on-campus accommodation again. So the applications close around now for the on-campus accommodation, and you should get an answer in June whether or not you got selected for the on-campus accommodation. But again, if you watch the full on-campus accommodation webinar, there's more information on them sort of like timelines, that sort of thing. Do you need a local reference in order to rent an apartment off campus, Brandon?
No, you won't need a
No.
reference. No, you should be grand without having any local references.
Cool. Then I live in India and would travel to Dublin by August, and most probably can I find a book an accommodation 2 to 3 months in advance? Are they generally available? I think that just that question is it, can you book accommodation that far in advance, or is it easier kind of getting something when it's closer to the time of your arrival?
Um, I suppose it depends. If you're going into some of the purpose-built student accommodation, then yeah, you can book in advance. That's probably the best move just to make sure it doesn't get snapped up. If you're looking at just kind of general private accommodation like an apartment or a house share or something, I would say you're better off going a bit closer to the date. But again, look around and try and get in contact with the landlord in advance to say, hey, I'm coming over in August. Would you be able to hold the room for me then?
I think what a lot of people will do as well is they might book some short-term accommodation for the first couple of weeks. And then once they arrive, sometimes it can be easier to find something when you're in Dublin and they find something that way. They find something through student pad once they arrive as well. Um, so what is the CAO number which is shown required for? So again, if you get onto the registry, they should be able to give you a number to use for your registration. And the CAO number is just the Irish application number. But if you go onto the registry, they should be able to give you something that you can use. Um, the next one is just what's the price of different rooms and off-campus accommodation. I think Brandon already went over that quickly, just on the different types of prices. Um, the draw for, I'm guessing the lucky draw be conducted. I'm guessing you mean for the on-campus accommodation. So again, that'll be done in June. And you should get an answer in June at some point, whether or not you got the on-campus accommodation.
There should also, I believe, there probably be closer to the start of the semester. They'll be further kind of following up in case anyone's pulled out or something. So around August and September, there should be a second round.
Yeah, exactly. They do second rounds and third rounds for any leftover accommodation that they have as well. Um, so the next one, I think Brandon may have answered this a similar question just a minute ago, but if you would like to live off campus, how many months before your arrival does one need to book accommodation? I don't know, maybe Brandon, if you want to just quickly go
Oh
over
yeah.
that again.
Again, I suppose it really depends on what sort of accommodation you're going into. If you're going into one of the kind of blocks of purpose-built student accommodation around the area, it's probably better off booking now to make sure your place doesn't get snapped up. But if you're just going for an apartment or a house share or something, I'd say better off closer to the date and kind of echoing what Frank said there, that maybe for your first while over here, look for somewhere that's short term before is what a lot of people would do to for the first few weeks, get some sort of short term accommodation before finding somewhere a bit more permanent.
Um, Can you please name the areas then which are near DCU and walking distance, which we should get the off-campus accommodation? Yeah, so DCU is located in an area called Glasnevin and Drumcondra, which would be the two closest areas. I think the easiest way to look is by postcode. So Dublin is split into postcodes, which is kind of like Dublin 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. The areas that would be most closely located to DCU would be mainly odd numbers. So Dublin 7, Dublin 9, Dublin 3, Dublin 11. That doesn't mean that other areas of Dublin shouldn't work because we're very well connected by bus. So, but then kind of Dublin 3, 5, 7, and 11, 9 and 11 would probably be your best options. Brandon, I don't know if you have anything to add to that.
I would just say as well, kind of when you mention buses, I think maybe look into the kind of bus routes going by DCU and see how well connected you are by bus route. Because again, you could maybe go somewhere a bit more closer to the city centre, a bit further, or a bit further out into the suburbs. But there could be a bus route that takes you direct to DCU in like 20 minutes. So keep that in mind as well.
Um, The prices for the on-campus accommodation, they can all be found on the accommodation website. They have a full breakdown of the different types of rooms and the different prices that they have as well. We have an on-campus accommodation webinar, which was a few weeks ago. Again, I'll stick the link in the answer to the chat. And you can go into that webinar, you can watch it and check. And then we went through all the prices, all the different types of accommodation that you can get. For the specific campus residences you would advise, Brandon, I know you named a few. Maybe if you just want to go through the names quickly again.
Yeah, so for off purpose-built student accommodation around the local area, some examples would be Shanawan, Aspen, Gateway, and Hazelwood. Those would all be roughly 15, 20 minutes tops on the bus away from DCU. Most of them are
Perfect.
within walking distance, so
Kind of non-students say in the off-campus accommodation places mentioned here, or is it exclusively for students? Do you know that, Brandon? Or would they have to check with
uh,
the accommodation provider?
for the purpose-built ones, that'd be student exclusive. But again, if you're going into like an apartment or a house share or something, that might be advertised on student pads and somewhere else. I'd get in contact with landlord about that before moving in anything. Just again, kind of in general, before signing anything, before planning to move in, I'd have a few conversations with landlord just to make sure everything is up to your standards and what you want to get out of it.
Um, So there's a couple of questions about getting temporary accommodation on campus, and in worst case, do we get accommodation in university for 4 to 5 weeks? I think if you're really struggling, again, reach out to Brandon's successor, who's going to be starting in the next week or two. Her name is Emily. Get in touch with her. There's different options. There's options for hotels through discounts. There's kind of temporary accommodation options that we can try and organize. But once it gets closer to the time and you're in that sort of situation, I would say the best process is to reach out to Brandon's colleague, and then she'll be able to see what she can do to help you.
Yeah.
Um, do postgrads get priority for on-campus accommodation, or do they need to directly look for off-campus accommodation? Secondly, do off-campus accommodation have any administrative link to the university? So in terms of priority for on-campus, there's no sort of split. So when you apply as a postgrad, you're applying for postgrad accommodation, and when you apply as an undergrad, so there's no kind of priority. There's a set amount for each type of student, and that gets distributed then on a lottery basis. In terms of administrative links to the university, Brandon, do you know if we have any links to any of the off-campus
Um,
options?
no, we wouldn't officially want any of the purpose-built ones, but again, if you're going on to studentpad.ie, any of the ones there have been vetted and approved by the student union, so they should be grand. Though, but again,
Um,
it's not official ties, but those are just ones that we have looked over.
Great. So the deadline to apply for on-campus accommodation that was set as the end of May. I think they're still open. If you go onto the DCU accommodation website, you should be still able to apply. But they do close very soon, so I would advise doing that as quickly as you can. Um, so there's a question, would you advise booking accommodation through websites like Aparto Student?
Yeah, Parto student is generally grand. Uh, I've had a lot of people come to me with it. There's not much on there that's local to DCU, so kind of I'd look at other options first. But again, there's no real issues with it that as far as I'm aware.
So as as Brandon mentioned previously, for any options that aren't close to DCU, just check out on Google Maps that if it's accessible by bus. There's lots of bus routes that come to DCU from all different parts of Dublin. So that is another option that you just be able to use public transport to get to DCU every day. Um, for on-campus accommodation, what would be the term? So the masters is most masters are 50 weeks. I would check with your program chair. I would check on the course webpage. Most masters are gonna be 50 weeks, so that's the option that I would go for. Um, then the final question is, can you give a couple of applications or websites where you can book accommodation for initial days with better deals? So I think
So
if that's kind of looking at if they were looking for something temporary for while they first get here.
Yeah, so a lot of the hotels around the local area around DCU would have a discount code that'd be like heavily reduced for students for short-term stays and stuff. Um, I haven't listed any of them off because I'm not sure. It kind of varies year on year who's providing what and what the discount code is. But if you get in contact with the Students' Union closer to the start of term, they should be able to send you on a code there. Um, if not, there is also some like short-term rentals on student pads, so look there as well.
Would Airbnb be an option if they're looking for something short term? Or
Airbnb would be another option as well. Yeah, definitely. Again, similar, but Airbnb wouldn't be as regulated as say getting into like accommodation because you're not signing a proper contract. So just be conscious of that. But Airbnb would be a fairly good option for if you're just looking for a few weeks
yeah.
at the start before
Okay.
you get on your feet.
Cool. Great. Okay. Thanks so much, Brandon, for all the great information. That's the end of the questions. I hope the information that we've provided has given you some sort of guidance on looking for, oh, there's a couple more have just come in quickly. Um, if I get a place in on-campus accommodation, is there a way to share my room? So that's something that you just have to raise with the DCU accommodation. I know some rooms, depending on the room, if it's a double private room, I know sometimes they let you share if you have like somebody coming with you, if it's a partner or something. Um, but again, that's something that you'd have to ask for the DCU on-campus accommodation team in terms of when the outcome will be. So the outcome will be told in June. You'll be let know whether or not you got the accommodation. As Brandon mentioned, they do second and third round sort of draws for any accommodation that maybe has been rejected or people that have decided they're not coming, that sort of thing. But June is the first kind of round of offers for on-campus accommodation. But yeah, so that's all the questions there. So just back to what I was saying. So just thanks again to all of you for joining. All the information you provided was great. Thanks to Brandon for coming along and helping us with all the information. Um, we hope we were able to give you some sort of guidance on finding on-campus accommodation. And I'd recommend to join our upcoming webinars for more information on helping you to prepare and prepare for arrival at DCU. I don't know, Brandon, if you have any last words.
Yeah, yeah. Just again, kind of following up. If you have any questions about accommodation, get in contact with Students' Union. My email is brandon@tcusu.ie. But again, I'm leaving office at the end of next week. So my successor, your email will be emily@tcusu.ie if you want to send any emails there. In general, I just say look at Students' Union's website and our social media and try and get in contact. Look for any contact details there. There's plenty more info there about off-campus accommodation and just in general if you want to get in contact with us.
Perfect. Okay. Thanks a million, guys. We'll wrap it up there and we will see you next week at our student panel webinar.
Bye.